Hello, I'm Professor Kino, and welcome to my Office of Cinematic Antiquity. Today we'll be talking about... So here we are, another year of movies has begun. Of course, it is January, so the hope of stumbling across something astounding is unlikely. However, as anyone who has watched my most anticipated list for 2020 should know, I have hope that this January will bring some solid films. Indeed, that's what I was hoping for regarding Underwater. Having been a Fox project that went under production, i.e. primary filming, back in the beginning half of 2017, I figured that the delayed release of the film was due to Fox's acquisition by Disney, which went through its negotiations between the end of 2017 and the beginning of 2019, and there just wasn't time to slate the smaller film onto the release calendar, or perhaps it just wasn't a priority. However, since it was a complete product, and I had hoped leading up to the film's release anyway, that it was of a solid enough quality that Disney thought it worthwhile to release out into the world, i.e. not so terrible that it would look badly on Disney, I was interested in it. Consequently, I had my fingers crossed that maybe, just maybe, Disney only released the film in January, not really knowing when else to release it because of Disney's already crowded release schedule of pre-Fox and post-Fox products, and so that the film wouldn't have much competition with the other characteristically poor January releases and would consequently make some solid money for Disney. Thus, my hope for this film was that it'd be, if nothing else, a pretty good way to kick off 2020 for me. So to see if that dream came true, let's take a look underwater. Premise. After a mining facility located 7 miles beneath the surface of the ocean suddenly starts to lose its integrity, the crew rushes to escape their slowly collapsing watery prison. However, right when they feel like they have a fighting chance to survive, they realize that there is something sinister out in the dark water, something that was awoken by their underwater drilling expedition, something with the intent of preventing them from making it home alive. Let's be frank, this movie has been done tons of times. A crew trapped in some facility, perhaps underground or in space, or in this case underwater, that has to escape both their environment and some predatory entity. There's Alien, The Abyss, Life, The Thing, The Impossible Planet / Satan Pit two-parter for any Doctor Who fans out there, and so many others. But there's a reason behind this constant rehashing. The foundation is solid, and as they say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So Underwater isn't original. In fact, it's rather cliché. However, that isn't necessarily a bad thing. In fact, when a cliché is done well, it can be quite effective. I mean, there's a reason for their existence. They work. And that's the category that Underwater falls under, because while it is cliché, unoriginal, synonyms, etc., it keeps itself feeling fresh and fun because of its deliciously dingy aesthetic that just drips with dread and a cast that is entertaining and committed. Let's break it down. First is the mining base itself. While it has pulled its influence from a multitude of other sources, such as the Nostromo from Alien, its retro-futuristic rundown feel is mesmerizing. It's claustrophobic and bleak, with tight hallways, water leaking down its walls, and very believable yet still advanced tech at every corner, keeping the thing operational. And you can easily feel how uncomfortable it all is. The slight dampness to everything, the dim dull light that permeates every hall no matter the time of day on the surface world, it's simultaneously depressing and intriguing. It's at its core very human. And this atmosphere continues to drip with its deliciously drab palette outside of the facility. Not only is the water dark and full of particles and dirt and grime that make it seem slimy and cold, but the fact that we are only able to clearly see the narrow sections that are illuminated by our heroes' artificial lights helps to build terror and tension. And these sensations are all enhanced by the design of both our human characters' diving suits and the design of the predatory creatures out in the water. The former are, while advanced looking, bulky and stiff, making movement and by association reaction difficult, two facts made even more noticeable by the agility and speed of the underwater monsters who quickly flit in and out of the narrow strips of light provided to us by our primary survivors. And this once again works well to build tension. And finally, all of these aesthetic elements lend themselves well to some gruesome, startling, and relatively original and inevitable deaths. All of this is then amplified by the aforementioned committed cast. While the characters themselves are rather stock, in fact some felt like they were plucked straight from the already established characters from the Alien franchise and placed here, they even have some wildly similar lines at times, and have some bare minimum character development if any attached to them, the actors, Kristen Stewart, TJ Miller, John Gallagher Jr., Vincent Cassel, Jessica Henwick, and Mamoudou Athie really sell the material. My favorites were personally Stewart's Nora, who is a solid lead heroine, and while not as good, reminiscent of Sigourney Weaver's Ellen Ripley from Alien. In fact, she actually seems to be styled after her, so that was probably intentional. And TJ Miller's Paul, who, while at times maybe being a little too comedic for the scene at hand, felt very much like a homage to Bill Paxton's Private Hudson from Aliens, which was once again likely intentional. So yeah, the foundation for Underwater is extremely solid, and it adds enough of its own uniquely gloomy aesthetic to make itself feel fresh and fun. However, it does falter due to the fact that at its narrative core, it is still constrained by its oft-used people trapped in a base formula. Consequently, while Underwater is elevated by its solid and unique, albeit homage visual qualities and production design, there's only so much new that the film can muster up. But nevertheless, Underwater is still a well put together film, especially for January, with a great aesthetic and some solid acting, and because of that, it is able to pick itself up and be a by and large solid time at the movies for anyone who is looking for something to see during this typically month-long dry spell, and is a fan of the studio-tested and audience-approved, isolated crew trapped in a precarious position whilst a hungry monster or monsters are making matters worse for them formula. So yeah, Underwater is exactly what I hoped it would be, and I am ecstatic about that. 2020 has indeed started off on a rather strong, compared to other Januaries at least, footing. Thanks for watching, I hope you liked it. If you did, leave a like. If you want to add anything, feel free to leave a comment. If you want to see more, please subscribe. Until next time, I am Professor Kino, and I look forward to our future discussions.